Same old trouble, villains always knocking at the door. Pretty pictures on the page, but nothing ever stays the same.
Thank you, Vandello, and welcome once again to Graphically Novel. My name is Josh Wafta, a.k.a. Fallout Fieri, and with me, as always, is my wonderful soundtrack, my Saya.
It hurts.
In a lifetime full of roses. My real connection. My Wong. It's there.
I don't want to be your Wong. I absolutely do not want to be. Oh wait, we're talking. Never mind. We're talking about Lynn.
That's a Wang.
Right to be Wong.
That was creepy and eerie, and thank you, I guess. And
only if you Wang Chung.
Ooh.
Tonight,
just tonight. And with us again, the lovely, the talented, the please God poison me so I don't have to deal with another one of those. It's the Baronessa, Miss Jennifer Howland.
Thank you, Bear. And as always, it's my distinct pleasure to introduce our guest.
This one you chose.
I did choose. I chose you.
I feel very fortunate to be chosen.
Our guest today is one of my dearest best friends, Dan Schaeffer, who is also an adjacent birthday buddy with me. And our birthdays just happened this weekend. So Dan, happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Woo! Thank you.
Clinky.
I'm clinking an invisible glass here.
That's fine.
So thank you so much for joining us for Deadly Class. And I'm really excited to hear your thoughts.
I hope I have some.
So yeah, the super cool thing is so for season 4, instead of soliciting guests, we've been doing guests in season 2. We decided to choose our own, and we looked at the list of what we had and kind of themed them up. And Dan, for our last one was Transformers, and we had our friend 3, who is a Transformers maniac and has been for many, many years. Dan, we found out you had not seen Deadly Class or read the comic, but it was so on brand for you, according to Jenn.
Yes.
Because I'm an assassin? What?
Yes. Well, come on. You're not supposed to disclose that.
Right.
Oh, right. Sorry. No, it's because I went to private school. Is that it?
You're just an accountant.
Rule number 1 of assassin school: you don't talk about assassin school.
I forgot that one. Apparently, it was not beaten into me well enough.
But yeah, so could you, as new guests do, give us a little overview of your history with comic books, comic book properties, that whole thing?
Sure. I mean, I've been reading comic books since I was in high school, of course, like everyone does. But for me, that's about 1,000 years. And I started off, I actually started off as a kid thinking that I was making a brilliant investment by buying issue number 1 of Machine Man.
Nice.
Which turned out to be not an investment, but I was 10 or something. No, but I've been back and forth with comics for years. I had several friends who worked at the local comic store when I was in college and after college, and I started getting into some of the independents. It was actually kind of nice watching in Deadly Class when they started talking about some of the comics that, of course, I had read in that era, Grimjack and Lone Wolf and Cub, or whatever. So I've been on with that. In terms of, adaptations of comics, I'm completely uncritical about Marvel Studios movies. I just watch them and don't bother to tear them apart, even though I know that there are good and bad things about them. So I watch all of those. I've started collecting a few other things, but mostly just digital. I have this online subscription for comics, and so I read a few. There's some that are really cool. I think and then I've been kickstarting hardcovers of Atomic Robo comics, which is, I think, my all-time favorite.
Nice. I've heard of it. I have not jumped into it yet. I've heard it's great.
Totally worth reading. It's so well written. Very funny.
We have, when we started, we had taken a year to kind of build up to doing our show. In the interim, before I had anything out to say, hey, this is public, this is our property, another graphically novel with 3 brothers in Appalachia started up as a podcast. Because you could start a podcast really in 2 ways. You could build up an LLC and do like, we're going to plan this out and everything, or you could just grab a mic and start recording. So But they are awesome. They actually did a show with us where we both graphically novels did Into the Spider-Verse. But they did an Atomic Robo episode, and just from their descriptions of things, like there's a Nazi dinosaur doctor.
Yes,
Dr.
Dinosaur.
Yeah. Like
time traveling.
Yeah.
Time traveling dinosaur evil villain. I don't know that he's actually a Nazi.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, no, it's great. And the great thing about, I mean, they've been kickstarting their hardcover series. So I now have like 13 volumes. And every time there are nice little extra goodies that they send you, like Dr. Dinosaur pins. I mean, it's a lot of fun just to read it. So actually, if you could do me a favor and send me the link to their cast at some point. Hear what they say about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also,
I would love to compare your reading list with mine, because I know we have gone through Lock and Key, several other series that I love. So I would really like to hear what you're reading.
Yeah. I mean, I tell you what I'm currently reading, have had a little hiatus, but I have a bunch of issues waiting for me, is Die by Kieran Gillen.
Kieran Gillen, who also did Wicked and the Divine. Phonogram.
Yeah.
We've talked to, yeah.
And then there's Once in Future, which is, it's been a while since I've looked at it, but it's an Arthurian modern day.
Oh, I did hear about that.
Yeah. And that I think is that Warren Ellis? That might be Warren Ellis.
That's probably why I heard of it.
Because there's another one that was Warren Ellis that I was reading, and I may be getting them mixed up, so I'm sorry.
Okay.
But Die is fantastic, and Kieran Gillen has created, because it's a role-playing game within the comic, he's created a role-playing game based on the role-playing game in the comic. And then speaking of role-playing games, there is an Atomic Robo role-playing game too, which is a lot of fun on the Fate system. So that's my comics connection right there.
That's awesome.
Junk.
My only non-homework that I have done recently is I've been reading the current Amazing Spider-Man, which is weird and fun and involves sin eating. And I did try to start my annual read through of Transmet, and I find until Biden's in office, I just can't.
Yeah, that would be a hard one.
I can't hit it yet because we haven't moved on from the Beast yet, so I can't.
Right. I was really into the Ms. Marvel, Kamala Khan. It's fantastic. I just love that. They finally cast her. Did they?
For the show that they're doing? Yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah. I'm a little curious about Disney's approach to all these shows, and 10 new Star Wars shows and however many new Marvel Studios shows.
The only reason that I think they're taking it seriously and doubling down, we mentioned this on the last show too, was I don't know if you've seen on Disney Plus, there's a series called Marvel 616.
I've heard of it.
The idea is, like, the first episode is the story of how Japanese Spider-Man came about to be, and why you never heard of it until like the mid 90s, because it was banned. Marvel actually banned it from coming to the United States in any way. But the second episode is specifically about women in comics and the history of women in comics, and it goes deep into Ms. Marvel and how Kamala Khan came about, and great. The writer having the idea and reaching out to the artist, and the artist who had won some awards for like indie comics and things, just being like, really? Marvel's gonna do this? Yeah, whatever. And hung up on her. Like there's no way you're a serious call right now, because Marvel would never. So the fact that there are documentaries happening right now telling that story, you can't, on Disney Plus, where this show's going to happen, you can't then turn around and make the show lackluster, Yeah,
I mean, they're going to have some hits and misses, right? Because they always do. Like Daredevil was great, and this isn't Disney, but I mean, Daredevil was great, and Iron Fist was crap. So at least I never even watched Iron Fist because I heard it was crap and it was just not interesting.
We tried.
Yeah, we did the first season. We didn't even do the second. I think Barry, you went.
I loved it. I thought it was great. Y'all
sorry,
piss off.
Well, we watched the first season and I was just like, this is. I agree with you that the second season is better.
Yeah.
Like what I saw from the second season, but the first season, it was so painful to get there. I was just like, no.
Yeah, I mean, not everything can be. In my opinion, Jessica Jones was the star of those 4. Well, 5 if you count all of them being together, the Defenders. But for every Runaways, you have a Cloak and Dagger.
Yeah. But and I just worried, not so much on the Marvel side, but on the Star Wars side, where they're introducing so many new shows. I just wonder about if they're diluting the franchise. I think that's harder to do with Marvel, which has so many different. It's really a bunch of different franchises. Right. But I find it very interesting that they're going whole hog with this stuff. And I'm looking forward to it. I saw the trailer for Loki, and that looks like a lot of fun.
Yes.
It does. All of the trailers actually are fairly.
I've only seen 2. I saw that one and Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Oh, have you seen WandaVision?
I have not seen the trailer.
Check that trailer.
That trailer's good, but as an old school comic books fan, I mean, I'm excited about everything that they're putting out, but the one that I was geeking out and being like, "Oh, Jen, what they're doing was they're doing a What If series."
Oh yeah,
but it'll all be animated, so every episode will be another What If, and when they can get the voices, they're getting the voices. So
oh nice.
What if Peggy Carter got Steve's treatment? So she was basically, well, they don't say Captain Britain because Captain Britain's its own thing,
right?
But basically, it's like Peggy with the shield, but the shield has the Union Jack on it.
Right. So are they doing it with new What If stories, or are they taking them from the older What If comics?
No, they're basically what ifing the MCU.
Oh, so it's MCU What Ifs. Yeah. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah. So,
that'll be fun.
Yeah, but they also have access to things like the actual actors.
Right.
So it's another little you might get a little Chris Evans back. You might get a little
right. Mark Ruffalo or
yeah.
Cool.
Robert Downey Jr. is who I was trying to think of.
I don't think.
There are letters.
Is he really good?
He might. I mean, if it's a voice,
I thought he
was
that
in your house.
The whole thing.
Yeah, but here's $50,000.
There's money, right?
Yeah, here's $500,000. Record something for a bit. Yeah. You don't have to leave your house.
Right.
So getting back to Deadly Class, Class is the first that we've ever done by a writer called Rick Remender, and Rick Remender has been in everything. We have in fact tangentially mentioned him. But Rick Remender is a writer and artist that actually got his start as an animator, and he worked on Iron Giant, Titan AE, and Anastasia.
Oh, I love Titan.
Wow.
Yeah. And he was a writer for video games, and he wrote Dead Space and Bulletstorm.
Oh, damn.
So, I mean, he is kind of in that jack of all trades kind of going through. But the big ones that he's known for, the big independent one that he's known for is called Black Science, which doesn't have a media aspect, so we haven't done it on the show.
I think I read one of those.
Yeah, it's basically like science that could destroy the world. It's or the universe. It's super crunchy, techie, evil.
Did that involve multi-dimensional stuff with astronauts?
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
From the very first.
I read that. That's cool.
And then he did his Marvel work was he did Punisher War Journal for a while and then moved on to full Punisher. But the big ones that he did, we talked about at least one of these on our episode with David Harnois, was he did Uncanny X-Force. So the run of X-Force where X-Force is the Wetworks team for the X-Men. Apocalypse is reincarnating. He's in the body of an 8-year-old child. And Cyclops is like, Wolverine, take your team and go kill that child. And so it was really good. But then he also did a series post VA, which was X-Men versus Avengers. It was called Uncanny Avengers. And it was a mix of Avengers and X-Men on a team that was also really good. So he's one of my favorites, just in sheer, come onto a title and blow me away.
Yeah.
And this did not disappoint. We saw the show beforehand, and then decided to do the comic for the show. But Dan, let me go back to you. You had not read the comic, had not seen the show. What were your initial thoughts? And was Jenn right that you were the target market for this?
In a lot of ways, yes, absolutely. I mean, set in the 80s, so that was a thing for me because I also was set in the 80s.
Similarly,
the art style is really, I mean, in the comic was great. So let me back up. I had never even heard of this until you guys contacted me about it. And I immediately went out and looked at the first volume, collected volume of the comic book, and read it and thought, oh yeah, this is pretty cool. And then I looked at some of the shows and I started watching the show, and it was kind of up my alley. So I really I have thoughts about it. I don't know how you want to approach it, but
the show is everything's on the table. So whatever you feel about the show, go for it, man.
Okay. I thought that as an adaptation, it was really, really well done. One thing I actually liked about it, and I know that Rick Remender was an executive producer on the show, so I know he was heavily involved with the production and making sure that it was like he ran reasonably close to what he had intended in the comic.
Right.
I was reading something yesterday on a comparison site of sort of the 10 things that are different between the show and the comic. And apparently they had to tone down some of the gunplay aspects because there were a lot of guns in the comic. And I thought they did a very good job of keeping it close. I really like the animated sequences that they put into the show because they paralleled very closely what it was in the comics, in the books.
Well, and I thought that those were a really good way to kind of mitigate the violence.
Yeah.
They use the animated sequences for those very
flashbacks. Always for flashbacks.
Yeah.
And they were flashbacks, right. Yeah. And so it's a good way of telling the backstory without having to do a complete flashback, visual.
Right.
I think my favorite thing, and I was glad that they had done it, and they did it really well. My favorite thing in the first volume, which was like issue 5 or 6 or something, was the trip to Vegas. And I do mean trip to Vegas.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I was a little worried how they were going to do that in the show. But they did it really well. I mean, they just hit every beat.
It was the page.
Fantastic.
It was the page.
It was absolutely.
And I feel like the comic was an homage to Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
Absolutely.
Movie, with the book and the movie.
Yeah.
But in the book, did you notice when they got to the hotel and they were going to their rooms, there was a dude that kind of resembled Hunter S. Thompson standing in the
I don't think I must have missed that. Oh, no, maybe I think I did notice that now that you think of it.
Yeah, I loved it.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I just thought I was a little worried because in the first episode of the show, when he picks the blunt up off the ground and smokes it, and it's laced, and he starts sort of hallucinating as he goes through the Dia de los Muertos parade or whatever it is, because they hadn't done that in the comic, and I was a little worried that they were gonna like dull the point of the Vegas trip by doing that, by sort of previewing it that way. But it didn't happen, and I don't remember I don't know the kid's name who played Marcus. I'm sure you have that information, but he did such a good job, cowering under the car, worrying about the digital mountains, and then just the whole rest of that episode I thought was really well done.
I think Bear's got it.
Yeah, Benjamin Wadsworth was the name you were looking for.
Okay.
I don't like the tablet for pulling up information. It's not as quick as the phone.
Well, I just happen to have the D handy.
Stop it, Jason.
We had to reach out to the D.
No, stop. Jason, I hope you're happy.
One of our previous guests referred to IMDb as the D for an entire episode.
Not only is he a previous guest, he is probably our number one fan.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
It's entirely possible.
It's him or Schwegler.
Yeah. And we would love to see that fight.
Well, thank you, Jason, for now implanting that in my head. I will never
right.
The D.
And now I do it like
again.
I was like, oh, I've got to open IMDb. The D. Oh God, Jason, why?
So to piggyback on that thought, though, Dan, one of the things that I noticed, and not many TV shows do this, not even any movies really do this, always the effect for drugs, no matter what the drug is the same effect. And so what Deadly Class did is when he smokes that joint and it's laced with PCP, it is a different trip than when he decides to just stuff a bunch of acid in his mouth.
Well, and that's I think what I meant when I said that it was very similar to the treatment that the movie Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, it wasn't the same. Like, if you're not aware, Hunter S. Thompson did a panoply of drugs. And that movie did...
Would you call it a cornucopia?
Maybe.
A plethora?
Perhaps.
A plethora?
Plenitude.
Did he have a plethora of drugs?
Yes.
How many drugs were in a plethora?
But I think that what they did in that movie was the effects, like what he was seeing, how he was behaving, what he was hearing, was different based on the drug he was doing. And I think that Deadly Class followed in that filmography.
Well, so I have no idea what smoking weed laced with PCP results in, having never done that. I thought the acid stuff was really well done because there was a variety of different hallucinatory things, and I thought that was pretty on target, I guess.
Right.
Yeah, I was the same way. Like I was extremely impressed that part of it, like even with the other little changes that they kind of did to flesh out the show. Like I said, that part was the page. Like when you are driving into Las Vegas and you are on acid, visuals are not your friend.
No, absolutely. Right. I could never imagine. I just couldn't bring myself to even think about it.
Right.
I think it depends on what else is going on in your head, right?
That's
right. But not even normal Vegas like now. 80s Vegas.
80s Vegas.
I personally couldn't imagine being on, what did he have, 6 hits of acid in the comic?
7. Stuffed it in his mouth because he thought it was bunk.
And walking through the slots. Just walking through the slots in any casino.
Right.
And I don't care what decade it is. And you're on 6 or 7 hits of acid. God, that would be just
being like slightly drunk and walking through Vegas and walking through the slots.
Yeah, that's hard enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. The one thing that I liked that they added in the show that wasn't in was the Ice-T cameo in the slot machine.
Right.
That was
Well,
hilarious.
it was Mr. T.
Because in the comic it's Mr. T.
Right.
And I think Ice-T is a far better choice.
Right.
I mean, no disrespect to Mr. T. Mr. T.
Who is obviously a regular listener to our podcast. We are not fools. Do not pity us.
Yes.
Right.
But,
or if you must pity us
Ice-T.
for some other reason.
We love you, BA.
What's that? Yeah, we love him.
Yeah. But we like Ice-T.
Yeah. So I thought that was really good. One thing that just overall I really enjoyed about the show, having just previously read the comics, was watching for how they hit all those beats from the page, right? I thought that and I only read now the first 2 collected volumes, so I guess that's probably the first 12 issues or so of the comic
and
book.
we're only talking about it on this show the first one, so up through the Vegas trip.
Well, except because I did watch. I mean, the whole first season goes through the second volume,
right?
Yep.
Which I didn't know until I finished the first volume. But we generally, we generally like to tell our audience, if you liked this thing, here's the graphic novel, and here's one graphic novel to just pick up.
Right.
But yes, you're right. Spoiler, I will continue reading this.
should I not discuss the second volume and the way it translated into the second half of the season?
No, because you can spoiler free on it, but I'm
not going to spoil it. I will try not to spoil it. There were, but it was just, again, watching all the beats and thinking, they really did that. I didn't think they were going to do that, or I didn't think they could do that, but they hit them all. One thing that was different in the show from what was in the books was the whole concept of who's behind the school, right? The guild, I don't know, I assume that's I think that's in the first half of the season.
Yes it is. Well, in the first season is fair game. Like
the first season. But I mean, so they have the guild and this whole sort of shadowy thing. That was not in the first 2 volumes. I don't know if they introduced it later.
Right.
So now I'm going to have to read the rest of the damn collections. But I thought that was an interesting thing because, and I also thought, I got to say, I think casting Benedict Wong as Lin was brilliant. I really like him, and it's a lot. I think it was better than the sort of Fu Manchu, magic Asian dude.
Oh, like the little tiny old guy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I thought he does a really good job, and I enjoyed watching him do that.
I think Marvel can pay attention to this because on the page, looking at Deadly Class, the first thing I thought of was, oh, that's the Mandarin, from Marvel, who's an Iron Man villain, famously in the Iron Man movies. they made him a white guy that was like
A
fake.
British white guy.
A British white guy who was fake.
who was basically in, can you call it what, yellowface?
Yes,
Yeah.
kind of yellow face. Yeah.
I mean,
he
he
was
was just
an
faking it,
actor.
right? He was an
Right.
actor.
Yeah,
Right.
Although Ben Kingsley did a very good job at that.
he did.
Right.
As always.
But how you
Yeah.
translate that is you get another Asian American actor
Mhm.
who just has that same sort of gravitas. It's
Mhm.
similar, I found, to when they recently did on HBO, they did the rereading of Hartsfield's Landing for West Wing. And obviously John Spencer had passed away, so you can't have, Leo. And they got
Right.
I'm trying to remember his name. Sterling. Oh
Yes,
man,
I remember.
Sterling Brown? No.
Better check the D.
Oh man.
Something.
This is
But
bad that we don't
So-
remember his name.
Still,
Sterling K something.
Yeah.
in keeping with the casting on Deadly Class,
Mhm.
Hank Rollins is quickly becoming Mike
Sterling
Clancy
K. Brown, you were right.
Sterling K. Brown.
K. Brown.
I know what I'm
Yeah,
talking
there you
about.
go.
Honestly, I don't know
Fair.
that I've ever seen
Fair.
what I would call a bad, like just a flat out bad, I don't even want to watch this anymore movie that had Henry Rollins in it.
He's astonishingly well. Okay, he's not a good actor, but
What causes it? This causes it. This causes it.
He's not a good actor, but he understands. Like he embraces a role.
Yes.
I think he was good
embraces
in
the
that
role.
role. I think he was good as Jurgen.
Well, because I think Jurgen was kind of based on him.
That's possible. I mean, he's not from the. I mean, I think there's a mention of Jurgen in the comic in the book,
Mhm.
but he's certainly not that major character
Right.
that they made Henry Rollins. That they gave to Henry Rollins.
Right.
So yeah.
And
no, I thought
actually,
he was,
I'll jump in and say, if you want to see an impressive acting job from Henry Rollins, the second or third season of Sons of Anarchy. So the second or third.
I think it's the third season
Where
where he's actually
you
playing
watch
the-
Henry Rollins play a neo-Nazi.
Yeah, he's literally playing.
So you
the leader-
watch Henry Rollins
one
play
of the
the
leaders
thing.
of the the Aryan
Yeah.
Brotherhood.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you watch him play the thing that he hates most,
Yeah.
and you
Right.
can just see Henry Rollins just pour himself into that role and just see the entire time.
It's fine. I'll just watch American History X again.
Love it. I mean, you could also watch He Never Died on Netflix, where he's basically Kane.
Oh, I didn't see that either.
Yeah, no, it's good.
Good.
what was it called?
Alrighty.
He Never Died.
Oh, I never heard of that.
Neither had I.
He Never Died. I've never
Yeah.
heard of it. It's a.
It's a classic.
So I don't want to spoil anything for the second half of the season in the second book, but it's not even in the second book. But I have to say another guest star that they use, French Stewart,
Yes.
Yeah. No. And
is so amazing. He does
is
such a great
so good.
job.
so the entirety of the season of the show.
You can
is-
spoilers
yeah,
are
is-
fine.
Okay.
Spoilers are fine.
It's
Okay.
just the graphic novel we tried to.
Oh,
write.
okay.
And-
So
I won't
but
spoil
yes,
that.
Yeah.
but yes, French Stewart in everything he did in that
Oh.
was he
It
reminded
was
me.
so good.
that episode where they take him out on a leash.
On the leash.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was it was hilarious, right?
It was so good.
And he was so good eating the burrito, eating the ice cream. I mean, it was like
Mhm.
this guy's been stuck in a room in a cage basically for who knows how long. Although one thing that freaked me out, I was just watching this last night, so it freaked me out because because he's the Scorpio slasher, right? Which is
Right.
supposed to be based on the Zodiac killer.
Right.
And I have not looked into the history of the Zodiac killer, so I don't know what they knew about him and when. But French Stewart talks about all those people I killed are going to be in paradise with me
Mhm.
as my slave. That's what was just in what they decrypted.
I know. I was just gonna say
Where did-
that was
have-
like yesterday, wasn't it? That
Right,
that decryption they're
Have
like
they-
they.
Have they had this information before and that helped them decrypt it? Or is this something that was just it can't be a coincidence.
I know.
right?
I was gonna bring that up too. That's
French
amazing.
Stewart
Maybe-
is the Zodiac killer. You've
He's-
heard it
Rick
here.
Remender.
Or Rick
Remender.
Remender.
Yeah.
Or whoever wrote that episode.
Right.
I
so
don't know. It was
recently,
freaky.
just to bring everybody up to the same page. Recently, the FBI released information. Cryptographers have been able to, after 51 years. years.
50 some odd years.
Yeah, 51 years, decrypt this message from the Zodiac Killer. And it basically says, all these people that I've killed will be my servants in paradise.
Slaves. He actually said slaves. Yeah.
Did he say slaves? I thought it was
Yeah.
servants.
No, I'm pretty sure it was slaves. But anyway,
And
doesn't
he
matter.
misspelled paradise.
Yes.
I remember that.
Yeah. Now it's possible. I mean, because they did have letters from him, and I'm just looking right now. They had other letters from the Zodiac Killer, so it's possible he mentioned it in previous ciphers and previous letters.
We're
so
dipping
I
our
don't
toe
know.
into murder podcasts now.
Yeah.
Now it's true crime.
But that's fascinating that someone could come up with a cipher that took people like FBI, the minds of the world, this long to figure out what it said.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it was pretty wild. Anyway, so yeah, I think it must have been something he mentioned in a previous letter, because there are several of those. But holy crap, that was like just a weird moment.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I didn't even think of it because we watched the series earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So,
right. And
it
was totally fresh in my mind.
Yeah.
Which made it all the more fun. But I thought that character was so well done.
Yeah.
And of course, at the end, when they're running down the street chasing Fuckface and his hillbilly family, no sign of French Stewart.
Right.
They just kind of dropped the leash and ran and left it at that.
Right.
Which I
And
thought was an
gone.
interesting.
Yeah.
He's somewhere. And I think there are a couple things where obviously they intended to make more seasons. Yeah. And that was obviously, I think, going to be a thing later. But I don't actually, I say obviously, but I'm not sure because I don't know that it relates to the book in any way.
Right.
Because
until you read further. Yeah.
Unless maybe it's further into the thing, but I think it was a good addition for the show. And I was and the show ending on a cliffhanger like that, obviously they intended to make more, and Sci-Fi apparently didn't think it was worth doing.
So the thing that I found out just before the show and out loud went, oh man, and Jen was like, what? And I'm like, I have to tell you on the show. This show and another from Sci-Fi were canceled on the same day. Do you know what the other show was?
I'm guessing it's The Expanse.
No.
Because that's another one that they canceled, but that had a fan base.
Is another one we're doing later this season?
Nope. It's one we've already done.
Oh.
Wait.
Happy. And this were canceled on the same day in the same press release.
Okay, who do I need to call and say, why do you hate me?
Was that after the first season of Happy or the second? Did someone else pick it up after? Okay. Because I didn't watch the second. I watched the first and loved it.
And I've been on 2 different podcasts talking about Happy.
I know.
Oh dear.
Yeah. But that I found that and I was like, gotta mark that down.
Oh yeah, Sci-Fi's made a lot of mistakes though. I mean, mistakes, bad decisions about shows that I like.
Well, and I think they're one of those channels that aren't considering the power of streaming. How you can get on a Netflix, get on a Hulu, and it'll take off, because The Expanse was almost canceled after the first season, and it was only because it hit Hulu that it was saved, and now it's like most people I know have watched The Expanse. I've only watched the first episode.
Oh, I highly recommend it, and 5th season drops in 3 days.
It's the last season too, right?
It is. No, they're doing one more. They got picked up for a 6th season, which, believe me. But when it was canceled on Sci-Fi, it was the fan base that essentially motivated Amazon to pick it up. This is beyond, I'm sure, the scope of this show, but I have a lot to say about that.
No, that's all right. That's all right. We talk about all that. We've talked about Lucifer in the past. Characters that were changed a little bit, I found. So going back to our episode on The Crow, because this was similar to me in that reading the comic actually talked to things that the TV show, I realized retroactively, we're trying to say without saying, or we're trying to show without saying. And the big one for me was Marcus's anxiety, because there is actually a scene where Marcus just sits down and talks about his anxiety like openly, whereas his conversation in the show is a little more nuanced. But there's also a talk about music and about, what Marcus listens to.
Well, before we get into that,
Yeah.
I because I know that's going to become a thing unto itself.
Right.
But the whole Marcus and his anxiety, I think that in the comic it was his journaling, and like that was his way of processing. But in the comic, it was a way to connect to another character.
Right.
And in the show, I think they tried to just make it kind of the low level Buzz. Like he was constantly dealing with his anxiety throughout the series. And instead of having those intense moments, like I feel like there were in the comics, it was just always him barely managing his anxiety.
Right. But it's but in the comic, he actually goes into it and he says I will stay up at night thinking about interactions I've had during the day, playing them back, wondering, did I miss something? Did I piss people off? And I was just reading it being next time you come for me like that, send a fucking town car. I'm like, okay, no, let's just lay it all out. Fine, Marcus. Fine.
Hashtag called out.
Right?
I don't know. Personally, I think I got a very Umbrella Academy feel.
I did too.
From this. The comic was good. It had a lot of great detail. There was, and like you said before, it hits a lot of the beats as you're going through it. But it seemed like the TV series just was able to add so much more detail, so much more, flesh out the characters so much more.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I agree with you because I felt like similar to Umbrella Academy. The storyline was there, but you didn't get the characters in full color like you did on the TV series. And I think it's similar. It's getting there in the comic, but the TV series, obviously, you've got to do that in a much faster manner.
And much more, 2020 ADD environment.
Yeah.
And you can do it in much more depth because you have dialogue, you have facial expressions, you have all these ways of people interacting that give depth to the characters that you can't really do as much. And the comic format is a lot more tell than show. And you can't do that on a TV show. So you wind up showing more. And that, I think, gives a fuller picture. One thing that surprised me, and maybe I missed it or maybe it wasn't there, was in the first half of the season, certainly, and through much of the rest of it, is the relationship between Saya and Maria.
Yeah.
Where they're best friends through much of the show. That wasn't part of the book, really.
No.
And
not until they do cocaine.
Not until they were on coke. Yeah.
Right.
Until they were coked out of their minds. Then they were best friends.
Yeah.
Right. But before that, they were in the show, they're depicted as really sort of being each other's pals.
Right. Well, beyond that, I mean, they really protect each other on the TV show.
Absolutely.
And, I think that this is kind of a spoiler for the graphic novel, but they aren't there. In the TV show, they're roommates. Mm-hmm. In the comic, they don't talk about people boarding there. They don't talk about the people.
They don't talk about aside from the scene in the shower.
Yep.
Which was, again, hilarious.
But it was also after a PE class.
Yeah.
PE, kind of, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. I mean, that was really interesting. One thing, speaking of characters and how they change things up from the comic to the show, is the big party that they all go to.
Yeah.
Which is, in the show, it's at Shabnam's house, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
In the comic book, it was at Lex's house.
Right.
It was Lex's party. And that was just a very different thing. And I understand why they did it in the show to put it on Shabnam, because they had a whole lead in for more things happening in that house. But I was very surprised because I didn't read, maybe I don't know, that may be second volume. So I'm hoping I'm not spoiling that, although it's not.
No, that's fine.
It was not Shabnam's house.
Yeah.
And I thought that was an odd or interesting decision.
That was one of the notes that I had from early on, because they took the preps group and the kids of CIA group. And kind of put them together in the TV show.
Yeah.
And I'm expecting more of that further in the comic series because they didn't have much of the CIA group. And I do kind of want to see that. The kids of like all the CIA agents mixing with, and the FBI and all the agencies mixing with just rich kids.
Yeah.
Because your CIA, your FBI aren't necessarily rich people.
Right.
But, you know, there's a level of respect and, you know, cops, robbers there.
Connection. Yeah. And you sort of have to wonder, right? I mean, every one of these clans within the school are connected to a criminal enterprise or series of or connect, right? I mean, the Sotovatos are Mexican cartel.
Organization.
The Kuroki, the Japanese kids are all Yakuza Kuroki. Who are the rich kids? I mean, that's why they combine them, I think, with the CIA, FBI. But they're corporate. I mean, corporate assassins. That's not as big a sort of thing in I don't think, in my mind at least.
I mean, Shadow runs on its way. So
I was about to say.
Right. I mean, if you get to that point, but
pin in it, because when we talk about punk, I think that is the beginnings of like little bit of cyberpunk. You know?
Yeah. And then one thing that I didn't quite, it kind of was a little bit of an off point for me, both in the book and the show, was the Dixie Mob.
Yeah.
The racists, racist Nazi Southerners. I mean, how do you coexist with them in this school environment? I mean, it didn't ring true to me even in either context, the book.
Well, I'm wondering, my question is that more abhorrent to us as an audience because of how close it is? Because there was also the, you know, Russian mob guy.
Which clan was he with?
He was with the KGB, basically.
KGB.
Well, was there a separate KGB clan? Because he was the only one I ever saw.
Yes. There wasn't.
There were the two other guys that always
in the shower.
When everybody was naked. And,
who were like slightly smaller, still just as blonde with crew cuts.
Yeah. Right. You're right. And
you know, that stereotype.
You're right.
But I think that, you know, I also wondered the same thing because in the TV series, it's like, how does she not get her mouth smacked off her face every day? Every day, you know?
Yeah. And one thing I did want to say about this is I think the show did a much better / more accurate job of depicting high school.
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't come across the same way in the book. But in the show, they really did a good job. Yeah, this is high school. This is high school cliques. This is high school factionalization. And this is also high school personal trauma, right? I mean, this is every character. I mean, it was all the main characters, but, you know, Billy the punk and Lex the punk and Petra the goth. I mean, these kids all were much more sort of real high school student-y than in the book.
Yeah.
I thought they did a very good job.
That was a note that I had, but also I think that it was trying to get there in the graphic novel.
Oh yeah.
Because, you know, basically in the foreword, they were talking about equating high school to a prison. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like, you know, if you're sitting in your cubicle at work, your coworker doesn't come in and smash your head into your computer screen.
Right. Absolutely would have happened in high school.
Exactly.
Right.
And you can't just leave high school without permission. The other thing, exactly what you just brought up, Dan, was the costumes. The way people identified who they were and whether or not you could interact with them were and I have always in my lifetime, and I'm probably alone in that, but the way people dress, it's a costume to me. Like, and I think of it that way. It's like, what do I feel like today? What costume am I going to wear? I don't think about what outfit. Exactly. Right. And so I think that
which facet of the D20 of my personality am I showing off today?
Yikes! Now I sound like Sybil. But,
I think that's also interesting. I think it's interesting. You look at it that way. I treat my body as a billboard. Like, you know, and that's why I wear jeans, I wear socks, I wear the same shoes every day. The only thing that changes about me is my shirt. And it's like, do I want to look professional today? Then it's a button-down shirt, you know, but what I'm doing is I'm advertising I'm working, you know, like right now I'm wearing a graphically novel shirt because it's graphically novel
Dude,
day.
you don't wear the band of the band that you're in, the shirt of the band that you're in.
Don't be that guy.
Don't be that guy.
You don't wear
Don't
the
be that
band
guy.
shirt to the concert.
Right, but like that's the only decision that I have when it comes to clothing in the morning. I grab underwear, I grab socks, I throw them on the bed,
Oh, no.
whatever they are.
Oh no.
And
No.
And then like I go through 2 or 3 shirts and think, what am I doing today? Am I doing something slightly nerdy? Okay, am I leaving the house?
The first
Do I want to
question,
advertise?
question, am I leaving the house?
Right. Do I want to advertise that I'm doing something slightly nerdy? Then it's probably like my Dungeons and Dragons and Diners and Drive-ins and Dive shirt.
Because when he goes nerdy, he goes all the way nerdy.
That's right.
He's 150% nerdy. Nice.
But I mean, that's how I see clothes. And I don't see other people, unless they're wearing something that has a graphic or words or something. I don't see it as, oh, they're nicely dressed or they're whatever dress. I generally, that passes by me.
See, I am
Self-conscious, not others conscious.
I don't no, I look at people and the way they're dressed and I go much deeper. I'm like, you know, why would you choose when you know you're going outside and people are going to see you? What about you decided that this is what you wanted to wear? And so it's not it is judgmental. I will admit that.
It's 100%.
But
it is judgmental.
But
Totally judgmental.
We're human beings. One of my favorite things we love to do is judge other
But
people.
to me, it's not like, oh my God, why are you wearing that? It's like,
Where did that decision come
what
from?
happened to you?
Oh my
Hey,
God.
now-
So I'm not judging, but I'm wondering who hurt you. Well, thank you everyone to the last episode that anyone's going to listen to is now horrible.
Oh, fuck
it
you.
might be the first episode that more people start listening to. I'm going to have another drink.
I have a quote that this goes directly into, though.
Okay, go ahead. But can I say?
Sure.
So to me, the whole like groups, you knew who belonged to what group by how their affectation, and it wasn't always how they were dressed, but it was their affectation because they were all in school uniforms, right?
Right.
So it was
Sure.
how they chose to present that school uniform told you what faction they belonged to.
Right.
And that's how I see life. It's like, okay, you know, what faction do I belong to today? How am I going to present my physical presence into the world? Which is why I'm judging.
Most of my attire in general happens to be conservative camouflage.
Right.
And,
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and
Right.
yeah.
I mean, what you're presenting can certainly be a way to hide among, you know,
Right.
the people you're around.
Exactly.
Right.
Like, for example,
so
today I'm
camouflage.
wearing leggings and a thermal shirt.
But I mean,
Okay.
don't get me wrong. Like, I still have underneath this, you know, button-down long sleeve polo. I have a shirt that just says "I'm fine" across the chest. That has a big blood spot on the side of it. My little brother bought me for my birthday. It is probably my new favorite shirt, and definitely the pajama pants are my new favorite article of clothing.
Nice.
But yeah, like the nerd is still under there. Like,
So
I got stabbed.
and I
Right
remember
here.
what
I got stabbed.
I got
Right there.
stabbed with a
Right there.
sword.
In the
How
kidney.
weird is that?
In the kidney.
How weird is that?
But in the show, it mirrors a conversation that happens in the comics, and this is what I wanted to bring up. When Marcus opens himself up to Willie, when they're on the double assignment. First of all, there are several fucked up things that happen in the comic that are very different than the TV show.
Yes.
Read
Yes.
the comic. But what does not change, or what at least is conveyed in the TV show, is that Willie and Marcus, that outing kind of brings them together. And that's the first real friendship that Marcus starts to have.
Right.
Because Willie admits things to Marcus, and Marcus admits things
Right.
back.
They actually are vulnerable to
Right.
each other.
But in the comic, I'm not going to go into specifics other than one quote, but in the comic, Marcus opens up more than he does in the TV show.
True.
Yes.
And I liked him, and it's almost as if they built him up as me. Okay, I do like this character. I'm on board with him, only for him to do the thing that's totally different in the comic that is fucked up. And I'm like, what the hell is happening?
Yeah.
But the line that I keep wanting to talk about is they're talking about music. So they start like Marcus starts opening up. Willie's like, nah, starts to talk about hip hop, and Marcus comes through. But the line that Marcus tells Willie is, it's hard to express honest emotions and to be fearless about sadness, because Willie's talking about how listening to that sad shit, like that ain't gangster, that ain't tough.
It's like,
and that's
he's actually saying, I think he said in there, isn't that gay?
Right. And that guy, and he says, yeah, if being like honest and true,
honest about,
and if that's gay, then yeah. And then that's what he follows up with. It's hard to express honest emotions and be fearless about sex.
Yeah.
Like it is such a, oh my God, that was such a great, you know,
Yeah.
but again,
When he talks about bravery there, and basically we start having a proto-toxic masculinity conversation.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. In the middle of these 1980s teenagers, which is the last place you would expect.
Right.
And on a subway in New York. Are we in New York?
Yeah.
No, San Francisco.
No, they're in San Francisco.
Yeah.
I have to say, and I don't know, this is mostly in retrospect, I think. I wasn't thinking about it at the time I was watching the show or at the time I was reading the comic. I think that Willie got kind of shortchanged in how he was portrayed and how he and where he was in the show, right? This show was so much about Marcus, obviously, but also so much about some of the other characters around him, but not as much about Willie as I think he deserved.
I think he got more in the back end of the show, the
sort
TV
of?
show. Yeah, I mean, I think he was able to kind of get more where they were trying to go in the comic in the beginning of the comic.
When he makes the decision to leave,
yeah,
and then ultimately makes the decision to
come
back. That's where his kind of character arc is. You're right, though, Dan. They didn't.
But he didn't come back in this show.
Oh shit, you're right.
No, he doesn't.
He didn't.
He just left.
Yeah.
He just leaves.
He and Gabrielle just took off.
Yep.
And that was, a little jarring. But, who knows? Maybe if they had a second season, he would have come back.
Right.
But I thought that there was a lot more interesting stuff about him, certainly in the first volume, where you get his full backstory. I thought that was more interesting treatment of the character than they really did, or more treatment of the character, not just more interesting, but just more of it than they did on the show.
Well, on the show, though, I thought it was interesting when they talked about like his introduction to being a gangster. On the show, they made it that he killed his father.
Right.
And they also make it slight difference. Who knows? Slight difference. The leader of his gang
is his mom.
Is his mom or is it his aunt? Did his mom get?
No, it's his mom.
It's his mom.
Because his uncle.
Is
right.
Yeah. In the book, it was his uncle who.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that also flips the idea of a matriarchal gang and disappointing your mother, as opposed to, again, toxic masculinity and patriarchy.
Well,
that was but they didn't really explore that very much, right?
No.
It was just mentioned a few times in the background, but it was never like Saya. Her cousins come and try to kill her, right? And there's this whole story there.
Right.
And Maria, she's got El Diablo, and there's this whole story there.
Right.
And
then also the guild and Wong's sister.
And Wong, right.
And the whole like women are stronger, women are kind of
But it would have been easy for them to tie that into Willie's backstory.
Yeah.
I am wondering if again, because Willie didn't just leave the school and didn't just leave his friends. He left that gang and his mom as well.
He left San Francisco.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right. So I'm wondering if that was another one of those, he'll get his focus in season 2.
Yeah.
Which we never got.
Maybe.
Because you're right. Because we did focus on all these other characters. You got to leave something. I mean,
Yeah. I mean, I guess. And I'm looking, just trying to think about the books now and trying to figure out, because the Willie and Marcus relationship is the first relationship Marcus has
Yes.
Yeah.
at the school. And I think they kind of, for the show, they kind of pushed that aside because of the Marcus, Saya, Maria triangle, which is obviously very important, but I just kind of felt bad for Willie as a character. It's like there isn't a whole lot here that we're not doing a whole lot with you.
But
Right.
I felt like that was really very high school feeling.
Mhm.
Like Willie and Marcus have a good, solid, like they're being honest with each other. They support each other, as reluctant as it may be, support. But think about it, high school guy has a girl interested in him. He's interested in another girl. His friends are 10 yards behind him in his mind. And I felt like, it's not that great for that character, but it really felt accurate for the age, the age group.
I mean, I thought they did a fair job with Willie and Marcus and the whole, Marcus or Willie telling Marcus to step off when he's in public.
Right.
And then coming back to him in private. I thought that was great.
Yeah.
But it just didn't continue into the second half of the season.
I don't know about that. I disagree a little bit because I think he just had more of a background, because eventually we've got Willie getting into more music that Marcus is into. He starts working in the comic book
It's
shop.
the introduction of the comic book store. It's the only place other than the roof that all of them can be together at.
Yeah. So we've got he starts reading the same comics. They're playing video games together. Eventually he's just like, hey, dumbass, like that chick was just flirting with you. And she was talking about Superman, and you love Superman. Why you blowing
Why are you being such a jackass?
Yeah.
I agree.
Right.
I agree.
I think it was more subtle and it was more in the background, but
and maybe they just had, and for obvious reasons, they focused more on the triangle with Saya and Maria and Marcus than with Willie and Marcus's relationship. But I kind of thought even, Billy got more face time than Willie in a lot of respects.
And
Billy's
I'm not
character,
really sure why.
Well, I mean, he's the focus of the Vegas trip, right?
True, but
so that makes sense. But after that, with the whole Lex and Billy and Petra and the punk kids, the real rats, that got a lot more screen time.
And I know why that is.
Well, TV.
But I know why it is for me.
Okay.
So this is going to start the music conversation.
Okay. The 90s kid is going to start talking.
Because I was
I'm sorry,
90s.
you're not qualified.
That's the point. So I was a 90s kid. So, punk rock to me was Green Day, Offspring, Blink 182, third wave ska.
Blink 182 is
Bless your heart.
Yes.
Bless your heart.
Yeah.
Bless your heart.
All
Bless
right.
your heart.
Okay. Let's roll with this.
There was one girl in my AP English class that wore a padlock on a chain. One girl. And I one day asked her what that was about. She was like, until you listen to a Sex Pistols album, don't fucking talk to me. And that was it.
Bless her.
She was not wrong.
But you find that even amongst, because Jen and I have conversations about what is punk versus what's not punk, and what is even goth versus what's not goth. Because again, 90s different goth
movement. You've got
movement.
punk, you've got post-punk, and then you have
New wave, you have
no. You have what is this new punk in the 90s? I don't even know what that's called, because post-punk happened in the 80s.
Yeah, but it's all post-punk, I think, at this point.
If you listen to the arguments between Lex and Billy, Lex is from London, Billy's from the United States. They are arguing about punk the entire fucking time.
It's true. Yeah.
And then
especially at the Adolescence show, right?
Yes.
I mean,
and then you throw Petra into the mix, and Petra's like, I listen to all of that, but like my tastes are more, and she would actually like what I would consider at that point dark wave, not even necessarily the foundations of goth.
Dark wave comes later.
Okay.
Yeah,
goth and I don't know that they really.
Yeah.
I don't remember them really getting into what Petra listens to.
And that's a point.
Yeah.
It was mostly what Marcus listens to, right? Which is
right.
What largely you could call sad bastard punk. The Smiths and
well, technically, wasn't that called alternative rock
at that point?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah.
Was that
Because I remember that was like a new alternative rock was a new genre.
Alternative.
Yeah, maybe.
But then it's
I don't know
like-
when that.
I don't even
came
remember
back.
it being labeled until the 90s, and then it
No.
was things like it was
No.
Yeah,
live,
but-
it was Bush, it was
That was
No.
alternative.
We
Yeah,
were
that-
calling alternative rock stuff in the 80s
Right.
that was not your commercial. Yeah, that's
I don't.
what we
Maybe
did.
in the late '80s. I don't remember. it.
Yeah.
But
Things that I've learned, since being with Jen. For example, if you had asked me, what are some bands that are in third wave or new wave? Like if you were to describe new wave music, like what was in it, and probably would have named a couple. They Might Be Giants would never be on my fucking radar for new wave, like to describe new wave music. But
I'm not sure I would
Yeah.
put them in. I'm not sure I would. Put them
I
in
wouldn't
new wave
either, and they would be like on the very end. of
They
what new
started
wave.
out more as novelty. I mean,
Yeah.
in a lot of ways. I
Yeah.
mean, they're great musicians, but I would
Right.
never put them in new wave or
Right.
any
I
of
get-
that. I
I
don't know what category I would put them, frankly.
And keep in mind, most of my categorization for what they mean comes
Mm-hmm.
from John Hildebrand and Jen turning me on to First Wave on Sirius, and
Yeah.
the number of times they play "Don't Let's Start" on Sirius on
Really?
First Wave
Yeah.
is nuts.
That's funny. That's weird to me. I don't listen to that. Although speaking of Spotify, I was very amused. They do the year-end wrap-ups, right?
Yeah,
And mine didn't show up.
It didn't? You never got
No,
it? Damn.
no. I got the email, and when I went to Spotify, it was just like, here are a bunch of lists for 2020. I didn't
Aw.
get my personal metrics this
Well,
year.
what I thought was funny was that the genre listing for what I listened to the most was, and I swear to God, chamber psych. And I have no idea what the hell that is.
Well,
so you're in a chamber and you
Yeah.
need to
Psyched.
get psyched.
No, it's clearly some
suddenly
aspect
in a
of
Saw movie.
psychedelic.
yeah, right. Yeah.
The funny thing is, it turns out Spotify is connected with this tool called I can't remember what it is. Every song or every genre or something, and they have this huge map that you can get online of all these different genres and how they interrelate, but there are thousands of them. And I'm thinking, how is this useful to anybody? But I thought it was fascinating that I'm, based on what I listened to over 2020, they put me in. They said my top genre was chamber psych, whatever the hell that is.
I think you should submit this to Reply All.
Yeah.
This looks like a job for Reply All.
How
Yeah, it might be. It
how
might
does that
be.
work? Well, I mean, from the beginning, I as I grew up as a music lover, I didn't have I absorbed what I heard, and I didn't have a group of people around me who defined what that music was. And so maybe I was lucky in that way. When I first really became obsessed with music, there wasn't anyone there to tell me that oh, you like punk? Well, then you can't like ska.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I just listened to what I liked, and I really didn't pay attention to genre. And it wasn't until I was older where people are like, oh, you really like punk music. I'm like, okay, I like these
I
bands.
guess.
Yeah.
I like these bands,
Right.
but I also like these bands and they're ska, and I like these bands and they're new wave, and I like these bands and they're heavy metal and they're whatever. It's like I like what I like. I'm not going to pigeonhole it again. We're back to costumes.
Right.
Yeah, I'm a lot less judgy about people's musical tastes. I mean, I will say I don't like X, I don't like this band, or I don't like that song. But I used to be sort of, oh my God, how can you listen to that? Oh my God, that's
so funny.
That genre is crap.
Yeah.
You said that, and I was like, you don't like the X?
Wait, X or the XX?
I don't know.
Either.
I spent my time with the XXX, but that was mostly when I was.
No, you
Yeah,
spent more time with the XX and X. Now that you know me.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, my I don't want to digress too much into my musical journey, but when I was in high school, my first concerts were Styx and ELO. And then a friend of mine introduced me to Ultravox when they were pre-Midjour, when they were not new wave, they were still pretty punk, and Gang of Four, and that was like the whole like my whole world changed at that point.
Yeah.
And since then, I mean, I went through periods when I was really closed-minded about it, and since then I've opened up, so I don't judge people.
I feel like I'm completely left out of this conversation.
I'm sorry.
Because
I'm sorry.
No, it's not. It's nothing to do with you guys. It's because my musical experience growing up was in like third grade. I started in band, and I played all forms of percussion. I played. Finally got into choir in high school. I got into actually playing trombone in high school as well. So most of my musical upbringing was either what my parents were listening to, what I could find on the radio in rural South Dakota. I'm just going to leave that up to your imagination. Or, what somebody happened to be, have their CD case when we were cruising mains in town after school.
Right.
So
what was that?
Well, it was the weirdest mix of things like Live and Slayer and Mozart. And
by the way, they're babies. They're babies, Dan.
They're babies. Well, that's that I understood.
I'm alternately going from like Night on Bald Mountain to Seasons in the Abyss to Live Mental Jewelry, and these are the things that are just popping around on my radio. It's just like I listened to everything, and I didn't really have anybody to ever be like, oh my god, are you listening to that? And it's just like, he's a band geek. He listens to everything, and he can probably teach you a few things about the music that you're listening to.
And this is beautiful. This is a beautiful thing. And also I had a similar experience because I came into punk music right when my parents moved us to Western Iowa.
I'm gonna make you have a clutching your pearls moment, Jen.
Mm-hmm.
I have never heard a Sex Pistols song that I can actually point out and say that I know that was a Sex Pistols song.
It's okay. I'll show you later.
I'll
show you later.
I've heard so many people say, "Have you never heard the Sex Pistols?" Like, no.
And you know what? The Sex Pistols are not the pinnacle of punk to me.
I
know.
So
they were the flag bearers in some ways, but that was because of fashion more than music.
It's cool. Sid Vicious was just a bass player.
So, but my point is, I think that
you're gonna get the mail bomb. And
I am gonna get the mail bomb.
I just want it to be a small payload. Not more than a mile blast radius, because then you're gonna hit my house too.
Okay, so what I think you were fortunate in, as I was, is you didn't have the social ramifications of genre, because I have friends who lived in like more urban areas where if you liked ska, you didn't associate with people who liked punk. And I'm like, how could you do that? I mean, I like both of those genres, but
where I grew
teenager,
up, most people like might understand that there was a genre of music associated with punk, but if you'd have said ska to them, they'd have been like, what?
Yeah.
See, for somebody that likes ska, if you saw a CD that you liked, you picked it up.
Okay.
Oh.
But my point to you is, you just listened to
You're
things
fired.
because you liked them. Thank
At least
you, Dan.
once an episode, yeah.
You picked things up because you liked them.
Absolutely.
You liked how they sounded, and it didn't matter who did it, where it came from, what the genre was.
If you looked at my Spotify playlists,
And
are
that's-
so messed up.
Well, and that's why I love you, Bear. Because you've got to ignore the costume
Exactly.
and do what you want.
Ignore the label, really.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, don't ignore the costume, because the costumes are fantastic.
Costumes are cool.
She bought
the
the
labels
labels for a
bad.
reason.
Right?
That's ex-LARPer talk right there.
Bear, you know me. He's like, she bought those boots for a reason. You know it.
Yes, of course.
But that's I mean, my first concert that I ever went to was on my 16th birthday. I never really got into a concert, and it was a Tori Amos concert. And my mom just knew I was going to a concert and was like, absolutely not. And I'm like, okay, here's the album. I'm not hiding anything from you. Just start playing music. She got like 10 seconds in. She's like, oh, I didn't know you were gay. Here you go.
Right. So, anyone who doesn't know Josh, and I don't know anyone who's listening to this that doesn't know Josh, but whoever doesn't know Josh he is an emo girl.
It's true.
Oh my god.
Like,
my
quote unquote emo girl, because we're talking about costumes
my
here.
point was on the way to that concert, it was also my 16th birthday, first day I could drive. So for my first...
The first thing you did was went to Starbucks and got yourself a pumpkin spice latte.
They didn't exist.
Yeah.
It was 1995.
Oh God.
No, I played Bad Habit by Offspring as the first song that played in my car.
Oh, well, you know.
On your way to the Tori Amos concert?
On my way to the Tori Amos concert.
Yeah, so, yeah. Okay.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Sorry
My first
about that.
concert that wasn't like just a street band in South Dakota, like a cover band, I was here in Cedar Rapids actually, and won tickets over, I think it was Z102.9 to a live concert when they were on their, I think it was their Distance to Here album.
Oh, live.
Live.
I'm like,
I was going to say,
of course it was a live concert.
Live?
Live, yes.
Okay.
Live?
Are we sharing first concerts? So,
Sure.
Dan?
Sure. Okay. So as I
So-
said, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh, well, I was going to say, so my first 3 concerts that I went to, ELO, because a friend of mine got tickets to the Out of the Blue tour. And it was
Hashtag Dan is from New England.
Boston. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, and that was actually, I think, at Foxborough Stadium. But that was the Out of the Blue tour. I was 15 years old. Later that same year, Styx Grand Illusion tour. And then probably a year and a half or 2 later, Boomtown Rats. So there was a sea change already happening. And then my friend introduced me to all those things. And so since then, I've never looked back, I guess. Go ahead, Jen. Your turn.
My very first concert was not by choice because my parents were, I was born in the 60s. So they were taking me to live music from a very young age where there are many.
I just remember lots of colors and a dancing bear.
No.
I don't get it.
No.
I was not dancing.
No!
I was
Screw
not
you.
dancing.
It was not a
Screw
dead
you.
concert.
It was not a dead concert. There are lots of pictures of me shirtless, running around with farm animals.
Same with everybody
Oh.
else. Like I
Yeah,
said,
like who
it was a
doesn't have that?
concert.
But the first one that I am sure of was the one of the first Tennessee volunteer jams. They had University of Tennessee would throw big festival concerts, and Leonard Skinner was there. Lots of those, late 60s, early 70s bands. The first concert that I went to that was my choice, that I bought the ticket, was the Stray Cats.
Ooh.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
And I walked away from that. I walked away
from
from that show just in awe of the
Give
sound,
us a DCMA. Stop
the
singing.
sound they could make with
Yeah.
3 instruments.
I get 30 seconds.
It was amazing. I mean, percussion.
Mhm.
He had a bass, he had a snare, he had a hi-hat. That was it.
That's all you need.
That was it.
If you're good, that's all you need.
It was a stand-up bass and an electric guitar. It
nice.
was freaking amazing. I still stand by that as one of the best shows I've ever seen. They were just amazing. High energy. It was the, rockabilly revival kind
Yeah.
of thing. I appreciate it. Wasn't quite my thing. I never really got into it, but it was such a great show.
Oh, I would have loved that.
Such a great
Yeah,
show.
so, see, that's true of a lot of bands, right? That you wouldn't necessarily choose them to listen to just sitting around in your home or in your car, but you go to their concerts and it's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's just an amazing experience, and
Live music cannot
Yeah.
be beat.
That's
I
true.
don't care what it is. I love it if it's live.
See, and there's where I fall back to my appreciation of Marcus is that, just
Oh, hey, wait, bring it back
let's bring it
around
back
to
to
the-
the
Yeah,
bring it
the
back to
actual
Deadly
episode.
Class.
just a 3
Hmm.
years ago when we were at a concert. It was 3 years ago. We were at a concert and it was like a dueling pianos thing. And that's when I had my first anxiety attack. Just so many people, so many what's going on. The 2 guys on the dueling pianos, of course, are like making fun of the audience. So they,
They're just being assholes, basically.
Well, yeah, but
they
it
were
was
not
like-
good.
it was an environment where it was the first time that I had like super bad anxiety.
Well,
And
it was
before
also
that-
a very confrontational atmosphere. That's what they were creating, and they're terrible. So
That's
Yes.
not good.
But before that, Jen and I had discussed concerts because she really enjoys going to them. And I find that if it is a concert where I can be at a table and ideally there is table service, I'm fine still going to that environment.
Like all the Wild Nep concerts.
Yeah, Wild Nep concerts is a perfect example because they're usually in an Irish restaurant. You get there early enough, you get yourself an alcove with a table, you can see the stage, you can hear them perfectly, but somebody comes to get you your drinks and food and
you
whatever.
get lit and you sing a lot of great drinking songs.
I'm not sure if that goes back to Tori Amos being my first concert because my second big concert was.
Did you sit through the entire Tori Amos
except
concert?
to stand up and clap? Yes,
Okay.
because it was at the Paramount Theater. There's no floor.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I went to see many shows in the Chicago Theater, and the first one that I saw there, was a Lou Reed concert, and I stood up during a song, and I was told by an usher to sit down, which actually is a callback from me seeing the Stray Cats because.
You tried to sit down. You were told to stand up?
No, I was told to sit down. Yeah. Stray Cats were playing. This was when I lived in Iowa. We were in Des Moines, and it was the not the Opera House, the Orchestra Center. And so there were like ushers and tuxedos, and it's the Stray Cats. It's rockabilly. It's rock music.
How can you not dance?
And they were telling us to sit down.
See, the second concert I went to was Boston on the Road, and Mighty Mighty Bosstones were headlining, but it had Amazing Royal Crowns, Dropkick Murphys, and Bim Scullabim. I mean, I was 18 and actually could dance and skate for that entire 5-hour concert, and then the next day I couldn't get out of bed. But but that's the thing. It's
an adolescent thing.
Shut up. My first two concerts were the most what I would consider. Well, okay, unless I had gone into a pit, I suppose. If I had gone when we went to Edema and Rearview Mirror concert.
Yeah, if you could on a podcast see the look on my face when he was like, I went from one extreme to another, Tori Amos to a ska concert. I was like,
yeah.
No, it was when we went to the Edema concert, and we were down on the floor.
My girlfriend at the time, who weighed $115, decided to go into the
mosh pit. Oh my god!
Yeah,
and it was not a.
I was on the wall of that pit, and that was not a fun time.
No, it actually was the 2000s.
That was the 2000s, and let me tell you something. The wall of that mosh pit was not a fun time. And we were so exhausted by the time Edema actually started playing.
The friends, though, that's the thing that I noticed. Normally in a pit, it's the people in it that are picking people up, and that's the sign of a good healthy pit.
A healthy pit, yes.
In this one, it was Bear, Luke, a couple other people,
Shiny,
but they made friends with the other people who were part of the wall. The wall all made friends.
The wall was bonding and not the pit.
And not the pit.
Right.
So,
and
go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that's a good. I mean, the whole pit concept is obviously comes up in the Deadly Class show.
Deadly Class at the
Adolescence
which
show,
was not my experience with a pit at all.
Well, that's totally my experience with a pit, where if somebody goes down.
Right.
If somebody goes down in a pit, everyone picks them up.
Everyone picks them up.
Out.
Right.
Yeah.
Although,
and takes them out.
as Saya says, when the metalheads show up,
right,
or the skinheads, they cause trouble because they are not part of the same mental space. They just have a different view of it, and they just want the bashing. Right? Mm-hmm. It's not about the bashing; it's about the music.
Quick note, by the way, on the Adolescence concert is when I looked into that, I was like, oh, I'm really interested in that band. That was the last recorded performance from Steve Soto. And they actually aired a tribute to him after that episode aired, because he filmed it 2 to 3 months before he died. And Steve Soto, I didn't recognize him from the Adolescents. I didn't recognize the Adolescents, but I do recognize Agent Orange. Mm-hmm. And he was the bassist for that as well. Yeah. But I mean, just such kind of a cool thing, that especially with Rick Remender and everybody else, showing their love for the 80s punk movement to actually, first of all, have a band actually be the performance in the
band.
The band, And then something tragic like that happens, and they take that platform and say, "Hey, here's some things
Thank
to
you.
know
Yeah.
about
that's
this
cool.
artist."
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Again, why I'm pissed that the show got canceled.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, I mean,
can
they-
I share my little? Okay.
Sure.
So I went to an adolescence show, and the concert T-shirt was you paid $5, and they took a Hanes white men's T-shirt and wrote the adolescence in Sharpie on the shirt and gave it to me.
Nice.
And the
Nice.
little doodle, yeah, it was awesome.
That is pretty cool. I sadly never went to shows like that. I mean, I really didn't. I went to various shows, and my musical journey has been kind of spotty because I like what I like and I listen to what I like and I listen to it obsessively, but I don't necessarily always go beyond that very easily. I mean, someone will tell me you should listen to this, and I'll listen to it. And if I like it, I like it. If I don't, I don't. But I really like the stuff I like. And so,
well, and that's why I always ask you what you're listening to.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it's vetted.
but I will say the soundtrack for this show
Yes.
was really, really cool. And I don't know I never study the bands unless I really like them. So I don't know who was in this band and then went to that band, or who was there and then, or the history of anything. But when I just love some of the stuff that they put in this.
Honestly, I think this soundtrack was probably second only to Umbrella Academy.
Yeah.
Umbrella Academy's second season soundtrack was better than the first, but I love them both.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, it's funny. So today, Jen and I were both sitting down doing our notes. Her in her recliner at the end of and me at my desk, both same room, because my living room is my office because COVID. Both of us were listening to our individual Spotify accounts with headphones on. Both of us were listening to the Deadly Class soundtrack.
And it is totally. I mean, I'm looking at a website right now that actually has them listed, because I paid attention while I was watching, but I wasn't able to identify everything. This is great. I mean, this is just some
right. Yeah, it was such obvious. I mean, the book was a love song to not just punk in the 80s, but the 80s. I mean, they really did focus on punk. But like we talked about, even Willie is like bringing up some newer hip hop, and Marcus is like, oh, so you abandon the old stuff as soon as the new stuff is new. And they have that whole conversation about it's the adolescent conversation you have about music,
Right.
You want to stay fresh, but at the same time you want to have cred, and
Can I just say though that I think it's time for people to stop using Killing Moon as soundtracks. I've heard it in like 400 different soundtracks over the past couple of years, and I'm just find something else.
I don't think I had ever really heard that song a lot until Jen and I got together. But it was also on my Halloween playlist.
Yeah,
that we play when we do our front porch, basically like the parlor of the Addams family, and sit there and I play music. And Killing Moon's on there, and L7, When We Pretend We're Dead, and like a lot of that kind of stuff is on there. So yeah, now I notice, like when I hear Killing Moon, and you're right, I hear Killing Moon a lot.
It just shows up more than I think it needs to. I mean,
Dead Man's Party.
I haven't heard that as much, but yes, I understand, because and I think they did a really good job in this show with finding stuff that wasn't overplayed in soundtracks, but they also had a few things that really were. Killing Moon being the obvious one.
Well, and I was wondering if that was
Saplan pour moi, also another one, which I love the song, but it shows up all over the place.
But I'm wondering if they chose certain songs because of the mood, because of the what was happening in the scene. And yes, it may be overplayed, but maybe the fact of that exposure makes it better for that scene.
Well, I think what happens is that they're looking for a song to fit a scene, obviously, the mood, the characters, what's going on, but they also want something that people are likely to connect with, right? And people are going to connect with songs that they've heard more before. And so I think that goes into the calculation. Also, who knows? Maybe it's just cheaper to get certain songs the rights to certain songs than
that
others.
could be.
Well, and now, so you don't run into a Wonder Years situation. Now, when you get a song on a show, it's not just the rights to use it on the show, it's the rights to use it on the streaming, the rights to use it on a DVD, the rights to use it on...
Right, it becomes much more expensive.
Yeah.
But you know, it was nice to hear different songs that I liked, but that don't get played a lot, like "Holiday in Cambodia."
Yes.
I mean, you know, or "Transmission." I mean, these things show up, but not as often on soundtracks as I would love to hear them more.
Right. Well, it's like, you know, I started thinking about it when watching the show and looking at the soundtrack. It's like, you know, when we would make mixes and, you know, beyond mixtapes and then mix CDs, and then, you know, you make mixes that you can share electronically. It's still the same thing. And we're just going to call it a mixtape.
Right.
Basically,
Right.
yeah.
But it's, you know, you're trying to convey something that is what you're trying to convey, but also means something to you. And so you want to, like, this is maybe exposing more of my personality, but like, I want to expose people to the obscure things that nobody's heard that I love. Right. And that's kind of like my goal with a mixtape is like, I don't want to send you just like a remix of songs that you know. I want to send you stuff you've never heard, but that expresses what you know.
And Dan, the next time we get out there when the world stops ending and we see you, there's a stupid little deck of like this stupid little game that we picked up called Mixtape Massacre. Yes. Or no, not Mixtape Massacre. No. Just Mixtape.
Mixtape. It's so great.
So it's kind of like, it's a Cards Against Humanity-ish, but because it's not that, you know, gross. But it's like, it's like you're in a car that's going 110 miles an hour. There are no brakes. A wall's coming up. What song's playing?
And then you find the song.
And then you find the song and you play it on your phone.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's fun.
That seems like something you should be able to do online, frankly.
It's fun to play. We played it with my kids. So it's so fun to play that game with like the next generation.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's cool. That sounds great. To go back to what Jen was saying about mixtapes, I mean, I honestly can tell you I never created a mixtape for a crush or anything like that. But that's right. I mean, what you're doing with a mixtape is you're expressing your personality, your message to somebody based on the things you like that you want them to like.
Right.
And I thought they did a nice job in the later episode, whichever episode it was, where Marcus is making a mixtape for Maria. You know, and he gets shit for it from was it Willie? Was it
Shabnam?
It might be Shabnam.
Shabnam, I think, because that's his roommate.
Right. It was you know, the unicorn and Pegasus, you know. But I just thought that's something that they didn't that they got right, but I thought they would have done a little more with that. But anyway, like what is he gave her the tape, I guess. What did that mean to him? What did that mean to her?
Right. There's no reaction of her listening to it.
Right.
Right. Well, and I think that you're right, Dan, because in the 80s, that was a huge thing. I mean, it was a big deal.
It wasn't just the 80s. I gave you a mixtape.
No, but that's when it started, because that's when it became more accessible to people. I remember trying to record things on cassette tapes off the radio. Because I didn't have, you know.
Right. And the funny thing is, and this is probably says more about me than anything else, is that I was always afraid to make a mixtape because I had messages and I wasn't sure that I wanted to send those messages. Right. It's like, this is what I'm feeling, but am I being too open about this? Am I going to get slapped down? So I was kind of reluctant.
You were I was appropriately paranoid about social media before there was social media.
It wasn't even social media. It was like dealing with people. So, you know.
See, I was diametrically, well, I shouldn't say diametrically opposed. I was on another end of the spectrum where I would create a mixtape and I was afraid that I was being so obscure or obtuse
that people would never get it.
People would never understand what I was trying to say.
Right. What the hell does this mean, Jen?
Wow, these are really great songs. Thank you.
But the other thing is also, if you ever were the recipient of a mixtape, what do you feel like you're misinterpreting it? Like, is this person expressing this to me or that?
Well, again, I think this, I don't know, maybe you can speak to this more, but I know when I received mixtapes, I read like the depths of the earth into those songs, you know?
Right.
Yeah, we have
Avenue
Q covered this perfectly. Avenue Q has an entire song about a mixtape.
I don't remember that one.
Oh God, he gives her a mixtape and she starts to go through like, oh, he does love me, and it's like, I am the walrus is on there.
And starts going through
and she just stops like, I am a walrus. What does that mean?
Oh, wow.
No, that's true. That's true.
That's
Because
funny.
I did make a mixtape for someone and they were listening to it and they're like, what are you trying to tell me with this mixtape? And I'm like, I'm telling you that these are songs that I like. And they're like, oh, okay. So
There's no
weren't-
deeper message, really.
No, there's no deeper message. I just like these songs and I thought you might like them too.
Yeah. I always have trouble with that also because I like a song and I'm afraid that if I give it to someone whose musical tastes I really respect and really sort of enjoy, they're going to hate it. They're going to think I'm an idiot. So I worry about that now and then if I'm just even recommending songs. But I'm getting over that with the help of expensive therapy.
There you go. It's the expensive part that really helps.
Well, that's how you know it's working, right?
I just paint a face
whiskey
on
is
a
that?
wall.
Which whiskey is that?
Yeah, which whiskey is that?
Which whiskey?
What's that?
The therapy. The expensive therapy. Which whiskey is that?
Oh no, that's a different expensive therapy. That's self-administered self-care.
Okay.
I think they call that now.
Right. Yeah. Some jobs give you money for that.
That would be me.
They, you, me, whoever. By the way, I just want to say that this birthday prosecco that I'm like a good chunk of the way through this bottle now. Thank you.
Excellent.
And so
Happy birthday.
Yeah.
my wife is going to be going to be weird about me, or
No,
I'm going to be a
she's
little
not.
weird about her.
She's not. No,
She doesn't care.
I cleared it.
I know she doesn't
cleared
care. I know she doesn't care. She's going to laugh at me is what she's going to do.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, well, that's the
That's
best
true.
of us have wives.
Par
that do
for the
that.
course.
Yeah.
Par
Yeah.
for the course.
So, any other big points that we want to hit? I am fine continuing to talk to Dan after recording.
I will talk to you as long as you want, but
there you
I
go.
have two things, or one thing that I thought of while watching this show was that there were a couple of anachronisms. At one point, and one of them maybe it isn't, but in the last episode of the first season, or maybe the second to last, Billy mentions Costco, and I don't know if 1988. I mean, Costco existed then, but it was all in Seattle and Portland, I think. So I don't know. That might be kind of an.
Well, maybe
an
that's a
anachronism.
callback to where he was from, perhaps.
No, because
Maybe.
from Vegas.
Oh,
He's
he's not from Vegas. That's
his
where
dad
his dad
was in Vegas.
That's where his dad was.
We don't know where he's from.
No, that's a good
I don't-
point. What was the other?
I don't think. But anyway, the other one was earlier, and it's Billy, so maybe he's a time traveler. But at one point he says something about leaning in, and I know that lean in did not become a thing until Sheryl Sandberg wrote that book,
Yep.
which was in the 2000s.
God damn it, business.
But so that one, that was like, okay, obviously they're writing this in 2015, 16, 17, 18. I don't even know when. 18, right, 2018.
2018,
So those,
yeah.
those are script writers who are obviously current in terms of slang and things. But that just, I don't know why. I'm an idiot. I'm an editor. Things jump out at me.
No, that was
that
interesting.
jumped out at me.
So Costco, the first Costco warehouse location was opened in Seattle in 1983.
Yeah,
but-
I got the same Wikipedia article.
Yeah, it became the first. Well, I'm at their website.
Oh,
It
okay.
became the first company ever to grow from $0 to $3 billion in sales in less than 6 years.
Holy shit.
So,
Wow.
so I'm sure
Wow.
they were at least to San Francisco by the point.
Well,
of this,
let's
if
see. So the
they're
first
making-
Costco was 1983 in Seattle.
right?
So 5 years later, it's not clear to tell where they were in terms of locations.
This
They
is
opened in
just
Seattle,
the kind of anal retentiveness that you will find.
Portland, and
Technically
Spokane.
not.
That's right.
So they were.
Well,
they had,
while you're looking for
And
that,
you didn't have
Yeah.
to grab the D to
while
do
you're
it.
looking for that, there was something that we didn't bring up that I absolutely want to bring up is the art in the graphic novel. And
Yes.
I forgot about it until I looked at my notes. So it was the colors, the art style, it was so 80s. It was really 80s. But the art direction was fantastic in my mind. It just it's such a it's such a good mix of like now kind of modern feeling, and the 80s it was stark enough to give you like the colors used to give you the idea of what was going on, but it was spot on. I just loved the typeface that was chosen. I loved I just thought it was visually appealing to me in every way.
Well, and to give credit where it's due, Rick Remender was not the only creator.
No.
Wes Craig was the co-creator, who was the artist.
Right.
And he is fairly new. Like Deadly Class was one of the first things he started working on, but he's done like some Batman, some Superman, Guardians of the Galaxy, and his big breakthrough was the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Comic book that came out.
Ooh. Is that something that can go on our master list? Because that could be entertaining.
Well, no, because the comic did not exist before the movie.
Oh, it didn't? Damn.
And if you're interested, he also does another one that he created called the Grave Diggers Union, that just the name alone, I'm interested. But he very much has that. Obviously, if he's doing Texas Chainsaw, he can do genre.
Yeah.
He can do like your time period.
But I must say, if you are looking at the graphic novel, and I want everyone to look at cover number 1 by Wes Craig. If you're looking at the collected edition, it's page 156. It's gorgeous. I would have that framed on my wall.
That's the one that all of them are standing above, and it's kind of a bluish tinge.
Yeah, it's blue, and there's a skeleton in the ground. It's just visually perfect. It's amazing. All of the important characters are there, and they're staged in their importance.
Right.
It's just beautiful. It's a beautiful image.
Nice.
And
I'm sorry, just because you reminded me, I was looking it up. I mentioned earlier at the beginning of the show, Once and Future. Yeah. Which I was trying to figure out who wrote it. It's Kieran Gillen, so your listeners can stop sending in their nasty letters.
There you go. There you go.
That's also Kieran Gillen, also worth reading.
All four of you stop.
Sorry.
All four of you.
Sorry.
Aaron,
anyway,
I think I've covered everything.
All right, so I can honestly start with our guest for I think the first time.
Yeah.
Our last question of every episode, Dan, will you continue to read this comic?
Yeah, I mean, I think I will. I want to see more of it.
I want to see what happens beyond the first season of the show.
Yeah, well, and also I will tell you, I'm really curious about whether the whole guild thing comes up in later issues. Like I said, I've read the first 2 collected graphic novels or collected editions, and that's I think 12 issues, and there's no reference to it. Okay. So maybe later, because it would help, because there is this big question in the first couple of volumes of what the hell is this school doing here? Right. Why is this here? Why does this exist? And it's discussed more in the show, but yeah, I will read the comic.
Also, this is one of the few that we've done. This is an ongoing series. There are still issues coming out.
Oh, wow.
Monthly of this, and there are 9 collected. So, Jen, will you continue to read this series?
Yeah, I will. Absolutely. I'm disappointed that the TV series, it's been canceled, correct? Yeah.
Same Days Happy.
I am disappointed with that, because I think that I felt like they were pretty in sync with the graphic novels. And I'm not sure why there wasn't enough interest. I mean,
because Sci-Fi needed money to make another Sharknado.
Hey, we need another Sharknado. The story's not over.
Still haven't gotten to the ones with Chris Jericho in them.
Yeah, I think this would have been better to continue this show.
Yeah,
I'm not going to argue with that. I mean, personally, I don't know that I would keep reading. I liked the graphic novel, but I felt more invested in the TV show. Sure. It had the extra detail I was looking for. It had, like I said, all those same notes that I got from Umbrella Academy. And again, while I enjoyed the graphic novel for Umbrella Academy, I just thought it was a different, it was a fun trip, but much like the graphic novel, it was a fun trip. But I don't know that I would keep reading it. If the TV series was still going, I would probably watch it religiously. I just didn't have enough oomph for me for the graphic novel.
I get that.
And for me, there are 9 graphic novels of this, so I'm definitely going to keep reading this in my very limited free time, where I'm not reading just a bunch of comics and watching a bunch of media for this show. I'm definitely going to make room for this. I really enjoy it. I love the show. I really wish there was more of the show. But if continuing with the graphic novels is the only way I can do that, then that's going to be how I find it.
Yeah.
If I get my
fix. For me, the late '80s is a big part of my life, right? I was there, and it was
Sure.
So it's interesting to see. And I don't know how old Rick Remender is, but it's interesting.
That is interesting. I would be interesting to hear that.
Have you seen Atomic Blonde?
Yes.
Okay. And there's a second one of those coming out.
Oh, that'll be
he is 47 years old.
Awesome.
He was born in 1973.
Huh.
So he was in his mid-teens in the late '80s.
He was like
13 when it ended.
Yeah.
Or 16 when it
15,
ended.
right?
Yeah,
15 by '88.
Yeah.
That's an interesting difference. It's an interesting time of life to be aware of, and then 30 years later, whatever.
Right. All right. Well, Dan, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
This was fantastic. I really enjoyed this, and it's just been bubbling under the surface for 3 point whatever seasons for us to just get into a huge music conversation.
Oh,
thank you so much, Dan.
Well, no,
for joining us.
This was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
This was definitely a lot of fun.
I've been so glad I'm so glad we were able to get you on this show. Yeah.
Oh yes, with my busy schedule, you'll have to leave a note with my agent.
In the age of COVID. Yeah.
Understood.
So thank you everybody for tuning in. Please join us next time when we'll be talking about The Kitchen, which was a movie that came out recently that it kind of maybe missed some people's radar, and most people probably didn't know it was a comic book. Yeah. So, and
we will have another of my very favorite people as a guest on that show. Just as a teaser.
Yes. All right. Until then, we will see you, and take it away, Vandello.
Come with me, I'll tell a story that you might have heard before. Graphically novel, but the same old trouble. Villains always knocking at the door. Pretty pictures on the page, but nothing ever stays the same. Come at me, I'll show you something you ain't never seen before. Right or wrong, or can't we all just get along? My mask is no different than yours. Pretty pictures on the screen, but nothing's ever as it seems.